This week's episode of the Wild Card Podcast is brought to you by Fernando.
Fernando, my little angel eyes, my dancing queen, my Chiquita. Does your mother know that you're with Fernando? Oh, honey, I do. Oh, mamma mia. Your kisses of fire. Oh, lay all your love on me. You're sitting in the palm tree. Rock me. Yes, just like that. Oh, my, knowing me, knowing you. Remember our last summer with one man, one woman. Yes, you are a real super trooper when you take a chance on me. Oh, voulez-vous, yes. Remember Waterloo. Oh, watch out! Waterloo. Oh, that was lovely. Oh, yes. Don't forget that my mama said this is the name of the game, so don't move on. No, because I'm a real tiger here in the tropical love land where the winner takes it all.
That is the dumbest thing we have ever done on this podcast.
Money.
Welcome to the Wild Card Podcast. I'm your host, Jared Eaton, and my co-pilots on this journey to wherever are my good friends Jeff Curtis.
Knowing me, knowing you.
And the Baron of Bourgeoisie Baloney, Mr. Ron Blair.
And the winner takes it all.
The loser standing tall.
Guys, that was last week's episode.
I love ABBA.
You make it sound like we just did that, but it was a week ago.
It was a week ago. Yeah, it was so long ago. I barely remember us doing the episode about Nazis and ABBA. The ABBA-Nazi connection.
Yeah, it's like Abbott and
Who
Costello.
knew that we could take a story from Nazis to ABBA?
I knew that you could.
Yeah.
Because I have that kind of faith in you.
And that's what this podcast is all about. So, Ron, tell people what this podcast is all about.
This podcast is about numbing pain. Your pain, my pain, the people's pain, the pain, a pain, on pain.
You're just kind of a pain in the ass, aren't you?
You got that right.
So, comfortably numb?
Semi-comfortably
Okay.
numb. Yeah. There is no pain that I'm receiving.
Okay.
Yeah.
Not yet. Give
But
it
you
some
need.
time.
It's not Tuesday yet.
Yeah.
That's true. There is a distant ship smoke on the horizon, so I feel that soon there will be pain, but I'll get $5 out of it, so it's all good.
So, we just had pizza together.
Oh, it was
It
good.
was a good
Excellent
pizza.
Yeah.
And it came alongside this cookie
Holy
with s'mores
shit.
topping.
That was an amazing cookie.
It was marshmallows and graham crumbles and chocolate on top of a chocolate chip cookie.
Yeah.
Oh, God.
So in the spirit of that, I want to know your favorite desserts.
Oh, man. So we do not count candies or
We've
candy
already done
bars,
candy
right?
before.
That's what
We've
I'm
already
thinking.
done candy. So I'm thinking like somebody prepared this.
Oh, lemon meringue pie.
Okay.
My mom does it for me every
I
Thanksgiving,
prefer,
and I love it.
Have you ever had lemon icebox pie?
Yes, I have, and I don't like that as much as
I
meringue,
love
but I
it.
do
It's
like the lemon
cold.
icebox pie.
I don't like the whipped toppings generally.
See, that I love
Yeah, I
whipped
don't like
cream.
that
I love
either.
that stuff. I love mousse.
I don't like the
I
texture.
enjoy
the flavor of
chocolate
mousse is good. I don't like the texture. There's something
I
about
get
that
that.
texture.
the airiness of it.
Yeah, and it does leave your insides a little airy as well, like that gassy kind of feeling when you get the whipped cream. I'm okay with it if everybody else is.
So are there any family ones or any holiday ones or just
I
general?
like chocolate chip cookies, quite frankly.
I didn't-
My
they're-
favorite kind of chocolate chip cookies, though, are if you take the chocolate instead of, most people when they make the oatmeal cookies, they put raisins in it.
I like
That's my favorite
I
cookie.
don't
Yeah,
like
I love
oatmeal
oatmeal
raisin
raisin.
cookies. I really don't. And
Most people don't. You're in
what
the
I
majority.
like is when you put oatmeal in the chocolate chip cookies, so that it's
And those are good too,
It's an
yeah.
oatmeal chocolate chip cookie, but it doesn't have you don't have the cinnamon or whatever spices are added into the oatmeal when you're adding the raisins, and you have the chocolate chips in it. They are so good. So it's like half of it's oatmeal, half of it's flour, and you got the chocolate chips, and you have your nuts, and it's just I love those. I also like brownies. Brownies are a good.
I like
dessert.
brownies, okay, but they have to have nuts in them.
See, I'm the
I
opposite.
really
I
enjoy
don't
them.
want nuts in a brownie. I want a hot brownie with cold ice cream on top of it.
Oh yeah,
That
I'll
mixing
go for
temperature-
Those are
any day
good
of the week.
too.
One of my
I like
favorite,
that, yeah.
I don't usually get dessert when I go to restaurants.
Uh-huh.
The exception is Chili's.
Which I've never been.
When I go to
so-
Chili's, we don't have one around here. There's one
No.
in Bardstown, probably the closest one, but there were a
Yeah.
couple in Southern Indiana. When I go to Chili's, I get this honey chipotle chicken tenders. They're tenders, but they're
Yeah. That
amazing.
sounds good
One of
right
my
away.
favorite sauces. The fries are great, and they come with corn on the cob. I like corn on the
Oh,
cob. a
I
lot.
like that.
So plenty of food, and yet I have to save room for chocolate lava cake.
Oh, that
It is
always
a-
looks so good.
It
I've
is a
never
hot
had it.
cake with ice cream on top of it,
Yeah.
and like an oozing
It's
chocolate
like fudge,
sauce.
isn't it?
It's
Kinda?
yeah, kind of. It's an oozing chocolate sauce on the inside of this cake, and then ice cream on top with a chocolate shell usually around it. But they've come with different versions, like
Wow,
hot
that's
chocolate,
good.
and that-
That
and you
sounds
crack
good.
into the shell, and then your ice cream starts to come down the side of this cake, and then you get a little bit of the ice cream go into the cake, get the hot chocolate sauce.
Yeah,
And it's just
oh, that
this
sounds
mixing of
amazing.
temperatures.
Yeah, it's really
is-
good.
I like a nice complex cake. I like cake anyway.
Yeah.
If
In
it's
general,
a simple.
I'm not a big cake fan.
See,
I like
I
cake.
love
Yeah.
cake. Even if it's just a yellow cake with chocolate icing. I don't like white cake. I don't like wedding cake. It's too bland for me. Same reason I don't like a sugar cookie. Like,
Yeah, I'm with you
give
on
me
cookies.
something. Give me something more than just
Sugar cookie is
and
redundant.
dough. Yeah, it's. But a hummingbird cake or a jam cake, the ones with the that has a little fruit in it, like there's
Yeah.
pineapple in the hummingbird
I hate
cake. I
fruit
love
in my
that.
cake.
Oh,
The
love
last thing
fruit
I
in my
want
cake.
is fruit or filling in my cake. I want my cake frosting on top is good.
Oh,
but
it's necessary
as long
most
as it's
of the
not
time.
like an inch and a half deep.
Yeah.
I just want
Yeah.
a
I hate thick icing. I hate that.
I
of
scrape icing
icing,
off usually.
Yeah, I
a
can't.
thin layer of
do it.
icing and cake. That's all
There
I want.
are
I don't want
there are two kinds
Yeah.
of cakes I like,
Uh-huh.
and they're both like outside the realm of cake. Cheesecake,
Yeah,
Yep.
which
I-
I'm not a
I
huge
make.
fan of anymore.
My dad never liked it, but I bake cheesecakes. My mom baked
I
cheesecake.
love
Yeah.
cheesecake.
I like
And
it when
the
it's done right.
Ice cream cake.
Oh, I do love an ice cream cake.
Yeah.
the which one? Dairy Queen,
Dairy
I think,
Queen
is better
usually
than.
is what- they're the ones who
Baskin
pioneered it as far
Robbins.
as I know.
Yeah, they have that like cookie, flaky.
I never
chocolate
had a
in the middle,
Baskin
I
Robbins
think, and
around
it's
when I was a
really
kid,
good.
so I don't really know much about that place.
It's disappointing. It's
I'm not a big ice cream cake fan. I get it.
Yeah.
But I'd rather just have ice cream. Have it.
I understand that.
in a
I'm saying
cone or
if I
have
have
it
to have
in
a
my
cake-
bowl or
Right. What about your favorite ice cream flavors? There's at least 31 that I know of.
There's a lot more than that. My favorite right now.
Uh-huh.
Last night I went to Baskin Robbins. I think on the way home.
think.
Right.
It's
I don't know,
either
so-
last night.
I
go there so often, and
I
I'm
go there. So I got a milkshake, and I like to get chocolate Jamocha. I like to get Jamocha
I
ice
like
cream
those
and
flavors. I like the
chocolate,
coffee
and put
flavor.
them together and make
Yeah.
it and have a milkshake with that. I love that. And sometimes I'll get a sundae instead, and I'll use those. Sometimes I'll have strawberries. Sometimes I'll do pralines and cream. I like pralines.
I'm a
and cream.
praline, a praline. Yeah,
Yeah.
pralines and cream fan
Yeah.
with
I
a
find-
vein of caramel in there. Oh,
I find
love
chocolate ice cream to be an atrocity.
it. What?
The only thing I dislike more that people like is chocolate and mint together. Or like
I'm okay with chocolate mint ice cream.
I like them
fine.
separately, but I do not want them together. But I just chocolate ice cream is awful.
I love
Really?
chocolate ice
I
cream.
can't say-
I'm
no,
more, I'm more a fan of a fruit ice cream. I love strawberry ice
Sherbet.
cream.
Sherbet is my go-to.
I like sherbet as well.
But like I'm a plain vanilla guy, but I like other things with it. Like I don't like I can eat vanilla ice cream by itself, but I love like Dreamsicle ice cream.
Well,
that's got
I was going to
sherbet
ask you
and-
about that. It has
Or,
the sherbet coating
like,
with the
it's
vanilla
like,
inside.
like getting like a Blizzard or a concrete
Yeah.
mixer.
But
or
vanilla
it's like-
ice cream is the same, is equivalent to a sugar cookie.
I
But-
agree.
Which is
I
why
agree with that
which
100%.
is why what I said was I like to have things in it. Like
Yeah,
cookie dough.
if I'm eating vanilla, it can't just be
Like
vanilla in a bowl. It's got to
cookie
be
dough ice
something
cream.
else. with
Cookie
it.
dough ice cream is typically vanilla ice cream with cookie dough bites, and like I want a lot of cookie dough in it,
Yeah.
or like
And
Reese's
I'm not
cups.
a fan of that either. I'm not a fan of Reese's cups in desserts. I like Reese's cups, but peanut butter desserts like peanut butter milkshake.
I don't want
or
peanut butter
something,
ice
I don't
cream.
like that.
I don't want peanut butter ice cream.
Yeah,
I
I don't
like
like
vanilla ice cream with peanut butter. The peanut butter.
Emily-
I like ice cream with like Heath bars broken.
Oh
up
yeah,
into it.
toffee's
Oh, I
awesome.
love that.
I used to
Heath
make
bars.
blondies.
Yeah.
Like it's like a brownie, but
Oh,
sort of
yeah.
cookie flavored.
Yeah.
And I would do like butterscotch and Heath.
Yeah, the butterscotch
toppings.
is so good, and I love Heath bars.
Oh, yeah.
A great deal. Yeah, our dear friend Emily Kohler has made like green tea ice cream, like homemade green tea ice
Yeah.
cream. I don't know how she does it, but it's tremendous. It's so good.
I'm skeptical.
The texture is weird at first.
Do you drink this ice cream?
No. It's an
it's
ice
ice cream.
cream.
Okay.
It's an ice cream, and it's so damn
I mean,
good.
I've watched Food Network a lot, and you'll see ice creams made out of everything.
Right.
Like savory foods and
Yeah, no, I've never tried that. They have the
Sounds
bacon ice cream, which
terrible.
is a big thing. I don't
awful
feel the
to
need
me.
to try that. I love
I
pistachio
heard I
ice cream.
saw one once, and it was tobacco.
Ooh.
Tobacco flavored ice cream.
You spit it out after you chew on it for
You chew it a little bit and then spit it back into the spittoon that they have now at 31 flavors.
There are a lot of things like that are really popular.
That's
I don't
so
get it.
bizarre, isn't it?
They'll like use like fish. Like
Fish.
I don't get it. It's
Lutefisk ice cream.
It's just lye.
Right,
Lye
it's a bowl
They
of
soak
lye.
the ice cream in lye.
Right. What about fried ice cream like Mexican restaurants?
Never. I think I had fried cookie.
I've had that.
I've never had fried
Drizzle
ice cream.
that shit in honey, and I'm all over it.
Now,
God,
have you had gelato?
I've never had gelato.
It's a cool texture.
And I've always wanted to. I've heard it's
cool
so damn
texture.
good. It's Italian
I had
ice cream,
it-
right?
Yeah, yeah, it's Italian ice cream. Have you ever had water ice though? Italian.
Oh, I love
No,
Italian
I've
ice.
never had that
Italian
either.
ice is great. It's like I don't know. It's like not like a shaved ice, but you have to almost scrape it.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
so great. I get it. There's a company called Luigi's. And I buy it at Kroger. They have like lemon flavored and then like strawberry
Oh,
flavored.
that sounds good.
Yeah.
I've never had a tiramisu either, and I'd love to try. Oh, okay, the reaction is bad for that.
I'm not a big fan of those kinds of things, but I got my
Mackenzie likes
Joe
it.
loves
Tiramisu.
them. I'm not. Again, it's the texture. I don't like the texture.
I
of
get
the
that.
tiramisu.
I had gelato at Otto. I think that's how you pronounce it. It
Yeah.
was Mario Batali's restaurant in New York. In
Oh, okay,
2005.
yeah.
Now I got a sorbet. I got a lime sorbet. And it was so tart.
But it was Mario Batali's sorbet, so it had
It
to be
was so
great.
tart that no one else at the table could eat it. Like they were like, "I want to try it." Oh God!
Was there a cherry
so good.
flavor?
Of gelato?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because if you
Maraschino
did,
kind of
I
thing.
like cherry very tart, and that would appeal to me. And when I was growing up, I ate black cherry ice cream a lot.
Are you a
I love
confection kind of person? Do you like
No.
frozen novelties of any sort?
They're okay,
Not really.
but you get to a point where it's so rich that I don't
Yeah,
want to do
there's
it. It's
too
no
much.
fun anymore.
Yeah, I don't understand why you put like 2 inches of icing on anything, because then
No.
you're just eating this icing. I don't
Yeah.
want the icing by itself, especially when it's made out of it's just confectioner's sugar with flavoring.
Yeah, I don't like that
and
at all.
And some food coloring. It's like
See, I was thinking more like Klondike ice cream
Oh,
sandwiches.
I do like those. Yeah,
Yeah,
I like
those
those.
are good.
My mom used to make. They were like potato candy, which is pretty much all it is confectioner's sugar rolled with peanut butter, and then it's in slices, and she'd shape them in some sort of form.
Oh, okay.
But the outer layer is completely confectioner's sugar, and so it's got
There's
that.
nothing potato about it?
No,
just
not
like-
that I know
okay.
of. Yeah, so there's no potato in potato candy.
Great.
And that first taste of confectioner's sugar is just enough to make you go, I can't eat this.
no more
That's
of that.
People
too
eat
much.
Pixie sticks. Now I
I
had
like pixie sticks enough.
Ugh, disgusting.
Not to seek them out, but I dig
Disgusting.
them.
My dad has neighbor. Her mom made. Maybe she makes it regular, but I only saw it once. It was a Dreamsicle brittle,
What?
and it was incredible.
There is actually a Dreamsicle alcoholic beverage.
I should never try that.
With no, because you may like it.
I would like it.
Yeah,
I like it
You
already.
don't taste the vodka in it whatsoever.
Vodka's not
it
the
tastes
strongest
like
of flavors
drinking.
anyway.
No, it's not.
Where do you find such a drink?
It's,
A
well,
liqueur.
at the liquor store, it's like next to the pre-made hurricanes or the pre-made grasshopper. You know those mixes,
Yeah.
like that, and you just
Called-
add vodka.
It's pre-made, and then you add
It's
your
like
own
you put it in a
vodka.
blender. You
Okay.
put that in the vodka in a blender, and it
dangerous.
tastes just like a creamsicle.
I'm wasted just hearing about
Oh
it.
God, it's amazing, and you just keep drinking it because you don't taste. There's no off-putting taste to it, and you're just drinking it, and then eventually you realize that you're non-functional anymore.
Can't walk.
Yeah, and it's the best thing because you didn't hate getting there like you would with taking whiskey shots.
Now the first beverage.
Would I hate getting there taking whiskey shots?
How much though? See, it depends on the whiskey too. I could drink
Well,
your honey
that's
bourbon
true.
for a long time. I could drink Southern Comfort for a long
That's
time.
true. There are bad whiskeys that would not be pleasant to get there with.
Well, like even with Jim Beam, I can't just sit here and like about the second shot, I'll start to gag a little bit, and
Then why have you-
the
but-
gag.
but
keeps-
something
Why have
like-
you been drinking
like
out of a 2 liter
Hennessy's.
for the last hour?
But like Hennessy's, like
Hennessy's. I've never
like
had
top
that.
shelf whiskeys can be very. I mean, they're not
All right,
smooth.
Jeff,
but
we
they're
can't
not-
get
Sip
tall,
on them,
we
but
can
no,
reach
they're
the
not
top
smooth.
shelf.
Like I've had the Woodford Reserve, and it hurt me. I can see where the flavor would appeal to someone more than it would, like Wild Turkey or Heaven Hill whiskey, something like
See,
that.
Cock and
But-
Bull is my version of that.
Cock and bull.
I don't like the
That-
smokiness of bourbon, but I like the spiciness of Cock and Bull.
Yeah,
weird.
because
Now-
Cock and Bull just mess you up all night long.
I wanted to get back to
Desserts.
the very first one you mentioned.
What's that?
Lemon meringue pie. We haven't talked about pies.
Oh
We haven't gone back
God,
to
I
pies
love
since
lemon
then.
meringue pie. I love pie.
I don't generally like
like
some pies.
I don't
Some
like
pies.
coconut
Like
pie
some
too much.
fruit.
I
Strawberry
like
rhubarb
most
pie.
I love strawberry rhubarb.
I've had it. I used to like pie a lot more than I do now.
Yeah.
I've had strawberry rhubbarb and it was good.
Yeah, I love that.
It's not
The
overly
tart and the
sweet. It's not
the
overly
tart
sweet,
and the
yeah.
sweet. Yeah,
You know, it's my favorite was always like apple pie or pecan pie.
I love pecan
I
pie,
pecan
but
pie.
when you talk about that's like the limit of where I can
thought
go
for sure-
sweetness wise.
I thought for sure
don't
you'd
want to
say
go more
pecan
sweet
pie.
than that. I love pecan pie.
I used to love
That's my
cherry pie,
favorite.
but I got sick on it once and I could never
Yeah.
I could never
And
touch
isn't that
it
a
again.
shame?
Go back to it.
Isn't
I
that
can
a
never
shame?
do
I
it
can't
again.
eat bugles for the same reason right now.
They're
not that good anyway.
Well, no kidding. But I
But I
was
know what you mean,
I was
yeah.
like 8 years old and I was
Nostalgia.
eating hot dogs and
There's your
bugles.
problem right
I'll
there,
still
hot
eat
dogs.
hot dogs, but the bugles just
Yeah.
can't even smell them right
But
now.
chess pie. You ever had chess pie?
I have, and it's
I had a lemon chess pie that was.
Oh, the lemon
My
sounds
favorite
good.
pie.
What's
But
a chess pie?
Chess pie, it's the sweetest thing ever.
It is
It
really
goes
sweet.
over the line for me
It
as far
is
as
really
richness.
sweet.
Most
and I
pies go over
can't do
the
it.
most pies go over the line. It's too
It's
much
like-
filling.
You've had a
Well,
blondie.
yeah,
You've
yeah.
had a blondie before, like a blondie bar.
It's a lot like that. And it's like
but a pie.
pecan pie filling kind of in it, that jellyish,
Yeah,
sweet
yeah.
kind of thing.
Like a flaky,
I love that.
almost
but I don't
phyllo.
like the chess is too much. It's just dough and filling, and it's like a chocolate
That's
chip
why I would
cookie
have
on
lemon
top of
with
a
it.
pecan pie.
They have
the
chocolate
lemon would-
chess pie.
would-
I've never had
Yeah,
chocolate
that's
chess.
the only
I'm not a
I've
big chocolate
had, and
fan.
it's way too sweet. The lemon sounds like it would the citrus would
it
balance
cuts
it
through a little
nicely.
bit. It's nice.
Yeah.
I just thought dessert would be fun to talk about. It's summertime.
Oh,
we,
it's
just, we
always
just had a
good,
good.
yeah.
We just had
We
a
all
great
enjoy
dessert.
dessert.
We had a good dessert. Yeah,
I'll get-
that cookie was almost too rich. It was just
Almost,
right.
yeah.
It was all just
When I order from
the amount.
Pizza Hut, usually I don't get that. I get
Uh-huh.
they just have a regular chocolate chip cookie.
Yeah,
with the
and
mints
that
of
is
Pizza Hut.
excellent,
And
too.
I'll,
Those
and
are
I'll
really
get that.
good.
I'll eat like one piece, and I'll throw it in the fridge, and it'll last in my fridge for like a week and a half. And I'll just
Yeah.
go back every once in a while and get one piece. It lasts pretty nicely. I like it cold.
Yeah, yeah, I'd buy that. Those are
Speaking
good.
of cold, it's Ron Blair's turn.
Absolutely, it
to,
is.
to
Cold as-
facilitate the podcast.
And be cold as ice.
You know, cold as ice. Willing to sacrifice
Our love?
Our love.
I've
Yeah.
seen it before.
And this-
Oh, you know, I'm hot-blooded.
Check it and see.
I've got a fever of 103.
I don't believe that.
Oh my gosh, there's two of you. I have double vision.
I know, it's crazy, isn't it? I don't look like, Warbucks anymore. I look like Jeff again.
You're
Like
getting-
I look
got
like
a
Jeff
haircut.
trying to grow his hair. Right. I look like Jeff's before and after time machine
you
photo
go.
or something like that. I'm looking
Which are you, before or after?
What the fuck, man? What kind of question is that? I'm the before. You got 9 years on me. I feel like I'm looking at my future every day, though.
And
Except
it
my
doesn't
future
scare
is
you?
more bleak than looking at you. Like, if I turned out to be you in 9 years, I'd be pretty happy.
Really?
Well, I'm not going to look at my future path, Jeff.
Okay, but your future path compared to where I am now, I can see the appeal of me.
Yeah, it looks pretty good for where I'm sitting. So today, the topic
I know
is
lots of topics.
It's this.
We
one
actually
is-
don't know the topic.
This one is. It's specific about something, but it's more. I didn't
really
take notes.
It's
or
specific
anything
about
this
something.
time.
Something.
Yeah,
but nothing specific.
Pandas.
So it can be tangential if you want it to.
Oh,
Tangerines?
a wild card
But,
podcast being tangential.
Right. Imagine that.
Imagine that.
But I've been watching the show Mindhunter.
Master Mindhunter.
Just Mindhunter.
It's about the advent of serial killer profiling,
Profiling, yeah.
understanding
Okay.
their minds, and
Yes,
what they,
the
why they're
FBI's
the way they are.
behavioral science program. And one of the, I had considered doing a whole episode on Edmund Kemper, which you certainly could. And let me just preface this entire episode by saying nobody wants to say my favorite serial killer is. Because serial killers are wrong in what they do in every way.
We've done a lot of episodes on serial killers.
That's the thing. I don't want to focus on one specific, but you can certainly bring
They
up
are
Zodiac or H.H.
horrible.
Holmes. Yeah. Their
But
stories,
they're interesting.
though. Their stories, though. And Edmund Kemper, especially
Captivating.
the human being Edmund Kemper, to me, is incredibly fascinating.
I don't know who Edmund Kemper is.
He was the co-ed killer, and like I said, I don't have notes in front of me. It's the early 70s, somewhere around there, and I think he had between 5 and 7 victims, minus his grandmother and grandfather, who he killed when he was 15. And then that
he got locked up after that for a long time.
He went for
And
6
was
years. Went to
a model
the
citizen
juvenile
there,
asylum. Yeah,
and then was
that's
released,
the thing.
and then killed people almost immediately.
He and the reason I bring up Edmund Kemper, and I want to talk about other serial killers in general, and see what your guys' favorite stories are and stuff like that. But
So we went from ABBA last week to serial killers.
yeah, we went too light during the last half of last
Yeah.
episode.
I
So let me
hadn't
bring us
darkened
back
up
to
in a
the
while.
darkness, like we haven't, been dark for a while.
We did talk Nazis last week. So,
Well, last
and
night,
eugenics again.
Last night I sat there and I went, God, if Jeff's topic is serial killers, I don't know what the fuck I'm going to do. But yeah, I want to discuss that. The interesting thing about Kemper, he would murder these women by he'd pick up hitchhikers. This is the 70s,
He
where
was
it was still not
huge, too.
6'9", 280 pounds,
but eloquent.
completely disarming, very charming, very sweet guy.
Yeah.
Whoever plays him in Mindhunter is the greatest actor possibly I've ever seen in my life.
I'm gonna look it up now,
He's absolutely perfect. And if you look at a side by side with Edmund Kemper and this performer in that role, he looks exactly like the guy, and you want to believe, from everything I've read about Kemper, you want to believe that this guy is very similar to the style that Kemper has. But Kemper grew up in a solid American middle-class family. He had a great upbringing for the most part. He had a domineering mother who didn't... The father had left at a young age, and Edmund looked very much like her father, and he was always a reminder of the rejection to her, and so she treated him as if he were a reject, an accident, an aberration, something horrible. God, what a good show.
Yeah.
And so when that had a direct correlation on the way he treated his victims and everything. And so it was his browbeating that he couldn't take. And there came a point where he was, as many serial killers do, he was taking out his frustrations by strangling dogs and cats in the backyard. He started with mutilating Barbie toys or G.I. Joes or something like that. He would
But
take a
this
knife
was
and saw them
before
up.
we knew the warning signs.
This is when he was 10.
Air quotes. But I mean,
Yeah,
like
we didn't know.
Nowadays,
They didn't know to
you
look
hear
for that
about those are the
behavior.
things you should be looking for. But
Yeah,
this was
back
before
then
that.
they had no idea. I love Mindhunter because
Kids will be
this is what
kids.
we use. This is how we started profiling and learning what connected these serial killers. And
Even now, it's not fully understood, though.
you can't understand such a random series of events.
But what I mean,
Yeah, but
I don't just mean understanding
Right.
I don't just mean understanding one person. I mean understanding serial killers as a whole.
Right,
There
right,
is
just in
no
general.
easy. They're like this.
Well, that's why the
Because
episode that I'm on.
sexual satisfaction is something that's connected to a lot of serial killers, where this
Right.
is something sexual for them. But that's
Right.
not everybody.
No, there are murderers who are.
And some of them had great parents.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
child abuse seems to be a connecting for a lot of them, but not all of them.
It's a big connection. There's often the mother has a lot to do with it, and I think I had thought for years that a mother fixation was one of the 3 early warning signs, but it is not. It was bedwetting. Most of them wet the bed until the age of 5, which doesn't seem unusual. But then when you add pyromania to it, and then you add the torture of animals to it, and if you have all 3 of those or 2.
I would think if you have torture of animals,
By
that's
itself.
by itself is a major
But
sign of a
but
problem.
like Edward Kemper is an interesting thing, because I was listening to something about serial killers recently, and it was talking about how it's just been kind of accepted that the only way you could be a murderer is
Right.
to lack empathy.
Right.
When you're a soldier and your job is killing people, they have to turn that part of your brain off.
Sure.
It is, you are doing your job. You cannot think of them as people. And so how could a serial killer do this? Well, they have to lack empathy completely.
Right.
And they used Edward Kemper as an example of, he had empathy.
Yeah, he did.
He felt bad
He
about
would
some of
not
the
have
things he'd
turned
done.
himself in if he had not had empathy.
Yeah, he didn't get
he
caught.
He knew that he needed
turned
to
himself
be,
in?
He absolutely did, because he knew he would continue that behavior.
That was the way his way of stopping himself from
Yeah.
doing these
Well,
things.
according to the script in the show, which is taken from actual interview interview material, Kemper, he was aware that what he was doing was wrong. That what he was doing was bad, and he also knew that he would have
couldn't
never
stop
gotten
it.
caught unless he turned himself in. He would have kept doing it for the rest of his life if he hadn't turned himself
There's
in.
an interview where he talks about when he knew he was going to kill his mother and he didn't want to.
Yeah, he knew at least a
knew
week
it was
before, if
gonna
not
happen.
longer.
And he just couldn't stop it.
But what happened is, when he was going through all that early stuff, his mom was afraid that he was going to end up raping his sister. He was around 10 or 11 at this point, and she shipped him off. He tried to go to his dad's first. His dad wouldn't want no part of him. And so he was taken to his grandmother and grandfather's house, and his grandmother was another domineering, sort of coarse woman. I don't want to say abusive. Like Carl Panzram had abusive relations, and that turned him into a serial killer. The world was shitty to Panzram. But that was during like the Albert Fish era, like the what we consider when we started to understand them. You had some years where there were serial killers, obviously, but you had the H.H. Holmes, the Albert Fish, those guys in the earlier part where we first started to learn that there were people that existed that killed in sequence that way. And then you had people like Edmund Kemper or Herbert Mullen or Richard Speck who ended up, that's who we learned how to profile and what gathered them. But then you still had the Starkweathers and the Whitmans who know why. Why did they do this? Whitman's story is very similar to where he had a wife, but he still had mother issues. He was trying so badly to live a normal life, and just one day got his high-powered rifle and climbed into the clock tower in Texas. I think picked off between 10 and 12. I don't know the exact number at all. I could be totally wrong.
Now, I know you love Psycho.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts on Psycho 2?
I love Psycho 2. It is one of my favorite sequels.
It's actually a good movie. Yeah.
It's excellent.
Well, it's like 20 years later, isn't it?
Yeah, 22
He had
years
gone
later.
through rehabilitation.
Yeah.
Trying so hard to reacclimate to society, but no one's letting him.
Well, he
Exactly.
could have. That's the
He could have made
tragedy
it,
of
but
it.
people turned.
It was Vera Miles' character, Lila Loomis,
Yeah.
and her daughter, who Meg Tilly, who ended up being a good guy eventually, but also the reason that
but they drove him crazy so that then he became a serial
it's so
murderer
tragic.
again.
That's the beauty of Psycho 2. It is not one bit of exploitation whatsoever. They don't take an exploitative path to it. They keep the high road in Psycho 2, and it becomes this sad, tragic story about Norman Bates and whoever is killing as the mother. And oh God, what a good movie!
In fact, they should have stopped after Psycho 2 and not made any of the other ones.
Well, the third one,
sequels.
I know Anthony Perkins. I'm sure he wanted to direct his own and everything, but Psycho 3 was bad.
It was.
It was exploitative from beginning to end, and that was the problem.
That's why, Psycho 2 worked because instead of trying to be exploitive and just redoing what they did in the first one, they continued the story and they made Norman Bates this sympathetic person that you're rooting for in this movie.
Psycho 2, you could liken to Silence of the Lambs as far as, do we call it a horror movie? Yes, because they're murders, but it's more than just a horror movie.
Yeah.
It's a beautiful
and
story
that's
about
why-
Norman and learning to love and being accepted by people or being rejected by society. It's just such a great story. Joe Stefano wrote that one. And he knew Hitchcock. He had something to do with Psycho 1. He wrote Psycho 1 as well. And God, what a good story. And I was going to mention Ed Gein, too, who Norman was very loosely based on. Leatherface from Chainsaw Massacre and Buffalo Bill from Silence of the Lambs. They're all based on Ed Gein, who I'll get to. I want to finish the Kemper story as far as that goes. But what Kemper would do, well, I was at his grandmother's house. So she was domineering. Long story short, he gets to the age of 15. He kills her with a rifle, waits for the grandfather to get home, shoots him, kills him, and is sent to the asylum for 6 years. He's released when he's 21 to his mother, which all the psychologists were like, this is the worst idea anybody's ever had, is to release Edmund Kemper to the person that's just going to browbeat him until he's a serial killer. Not serial killer. They knew something. It was a potential for disaster, leaving him to his mother, and that's when he started. She was a matron kind of thing at a university, and according to Kemper, she was the sweetest, kindest woman to everybody in the world but him.
Right.
She was well respected. Everybody loved her, and Kemper used that hostility when he started picking up the co-eds who his mother favored. These women, treated them more like children than he did Kemper. And so Kemper would pick them up and strangle or stab them. I can't exactly remember his MO on that.
Probably wasn't always the same.
Not always the same, but most of the time, he would always sexually assault the body afterward. Sometimes just assaulting the severed head. He would often cut off the head and then molest just the head through the neck.
Ew.
Yeah. He goes into detail about how it's more cartilaginous, the neck, than other places where
I
you can
really
stick it.
don't want to hear that.
Really disturbing stuff. When he finally killed his mother, and this was near the end, he had killed several people and buried the heads below his mother's window in the backyard. And his mother finally pushed him over the edge one day, and he killed her with a claw hammer and then cut off her head and defiled it as well. And the interesting thing is that Kemper, who has an IQ of 145, so he knows why he's doing this stuff.
he's aware of it, and he took a very clinical view of the murders and slicing, and the afterwards when he would dissect the bodies, it was very clinical for him. The mother, he took out her vocal cords and shoved them into the trash compactor because he wanted to get rid of any remnant of her speech, of her voice. And it was very symbolic of that. And it was shortly after that he went ahead and turned himself in. Became a model prisoner, set up established education programs for other prisoners. And if you talk to anybody, even the FBI guy that Jonathan Groff plays, the fictionalized version of this guy, he admitted that he likes Kemper. He thought he's a nice guy. He's an intelligent, nice guy, but there's that dark side of him that is released under certain circumstances. And in prison, he's a model citizen.
Because he doesn't have the what?
He's probably not exposed to females.
He doesn't have the opportunity.
He doesn't have the opportunity. There's no women around for him.
There's no women around or anything like that. And so he, like, when you remove that...
Because I would think there'd be stressors
stimulus
in jail.
Sure, you would think.
But probably not his specific kind of triggers.
That's exactly
and
it.
trigger is a word that's overused now, but that's an appropriate place for it.
Kemper, when he's in a prison population, there are none of those stressors that specifically trigger him. And not to say he doesn't get upset or anything, but Kemper also stayed cool during several times he shouldn't have. You know, when everybody else would have been freaking out, Kemper was very cool, and he evaded the cops for so long because he knew them, he talked to them. He was a huge fan, and I can't remember the TV show, but of cop shows in general. And so he knew what they would look for, and he would just keep his mouth shut when it was time to keep. He was very smart. He's got an IQ of 145, and those are the IQ tests as administered back then, and they're a little different from what we do now. So 145 isn't accurate, but
it's still very good, though.
Everybody agrees he's borderline genius back then by those standards, and he's a very smart guy. And then you see where you have serial killers like Richard Ramirez that you can place in this guy's not an intellect. He's not so smart. Like Bundy was an intellectual. He was one of the smarter ones. And you got Richard Ramirez, who was not. There's another one. I can't remember his name. His name is the Iceman, where he had a propensity for serial murder anyway. And then the mob, he was in New Jersey or New York, where the mob found him and said, they paid him to kill people. He said I think I heard an interview with him recently. He said sex is the only adrenaline rush he gets. He gets nothing from murdering people, but there's an enjoyment to it. But by the time he was caught, it's a job.
Yeah.
You're treating people like meat. Just when you go to kill them, it's just another hunk of meat that you're stabbing the shit out of.
It's money for you.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So he lost the thrill of that.
He lost the thrill of murder.
By doing it so many times.
It was just a job for him.
Well, you'll often find what's called escalation, where you do it once because it's this thing you've been thinking about for so long, and then it is amazing, and you go to do it again, it's not quite the same.
Right.
So you've got to try something different.
Yeah.
You've got to go further this time, and that's...
Right.
Well, not always, but a lot of times you'll see this will lead to them making a mistake because they're trying new things and pushing it further and taking bigger risks.
Well, the show makes some interesting points, so let's break down what we know of at least serial killers in the modern world, because I'm sure you could look at the pre-industrial era and you could see specific examples of this lack of empathy, this sociopathy that was prevalent in people, some specific people back then, probably like the Sawney Bean people. You would say, was it survival or did they enjoy hunting and murdering other people? And so you look at, I had mentioned Albert Fish, who this was the earliest days of modern media with newspapers and all that. Albert Fish, who would abduct children, and he would kill them and eat them. He would torture them, and then this is the part that's truly horrifying, is that he would send letters to the parents explaining how he prepared their children when he cooked them and the correct way to cook a child. Yeah, and he also had this punishment. Like a self-punishment thing, he drove pins and nails into his groin, into his frenum area. And I think that was a self-flagellation for him, a way to deal with his guilt at the time. So what separates an Albert Fish from an H.H. Holmes, who had these elaborate plans. And didn't he? While just as sadistic, he wasn't tormenting the victims' families or anything.
No.
He was a shyster.
He would
for
lie
sure.
to them.
Right.
He would send them letters saying they had decided because they were working for him or they had
But
met
he
him.
was
Right.
torturing people because he was
no, he
locking
was
them away
torturing. He
was
inside
torturing.
their
He
room.
wasn't
Yeah.
torturing the families.
Right. He wasn't sending
Right,
letters
'cause
to the families.
He was
or
smart
anything.
enough to know, well, that might get me
Zodiac.
caught.
Right. That wasn't
Zodiac
in his
did that.
pathology. Yeah. There's that.
He didn't have to brag about it. The guy
And
who's
that's-
sending letters to families is bragging about it.
That's the thing. Did the Zodiac have an upbringing, and we'll never know, but did he have an upbringing where he was neglected by a parent that made him seek this attention from authority
You will
figures?
see me.
Right, exactly. I'll make you pay attention to me no matter what. So let's move on to someone like Ed Gein, who is not like Kemper or Bundy smart. He's just a yokel. And he was in, if I'm not mistaken, like I said, I don't have the numbers in front of me. People can look it up on their own. This is just a loose conversation. But you've got someone like Ed Gein, who is not necessarily a serial killer. He had 2 confirmed murders, and he was already in his 50s. But again, he had grown up, and he was dim-witted enough that he had to stay with his mother and brother. He couldn't really function on his own. And his mother was a domineering, abusive, horrible woman, treated Ed very poorly. And the town that he was in, what's the name of it? It's in Wisconsin, and I can't, the name escapes me right now, but Plainfield, Wisconsin. They knew Ed, they liked Ed. He would sit at the bar and he would joke about his shrunken head collection. And this is the 50s, so they're like, yeah, that's funny, Ed, ha ha. And he was very morbid in ways, but he was charming. You know, he was just a nice, dim-witted guy, and he would do odd jobs around town for these guys. At times, he would even babysit, and the kids loved him. Yeah. There was nothing. Everybody knew he was a little off.
But there were no major red flags or indications.
None at all. Even a modern profiler could probably look at him and go, there's something off about him worth investigating. But at that time, there was nothing. He was just kind of weird. You know, he was a strange guy who lived with his mom, and then his mom died under the slightest of mysterious circumstances. And nobody was pointing the finger at Ed at this time. And that's why I say he only had 2 confirmed murders. His brother, who he also lived with in that farmhouse in Plainfield, had died in a fire out in the field. And it's suspected that Ed started it, but there's no evidence whatsoever, or even real indication that Ed had done it.
Is there any motive of any sort?
No, not for his brother. You know, not for his brother at all. But then again, when you're in a situation, if Ed was exploring his dark side and began by murdering his mother, who knows?
Alternative suggestion is these horrible things happened around him, and that's what pushed him.
That could be. And I don't remember whether the brother was killed before the mother or whatever, but once the mother was killed...
It'd be easy if you're a little on the struggling side and you have people in your life that are dying to want to understand that better.
Right. And Ed found himself in possession of this big farmhouse in Plainfield that he was the sole owner of. And he would still go around town, but I can't remember whether she was a sporting goods store owner, something like that, and she caught his eye, or maybe a diner or something like that. I can't remember, but and that was his first victim, I believe. And then there was a second victim that was a very well-known barmaid. She owned the bar, and he came in one night and shot her. And when Ed was discovered, when they found out, it was by I believe a sheriff's deputy who opened the barn door, and this woman was hanging upside down like a pig, being cured. Her throat slit, and she was being drained of blood in the barn, just like a deer or something during hunting season. Then they go into the house, and they find the furniture made of bones. It turned out he was a grave robber, and he would take the skin of these people, and he would collect. He had a vagina and nipple collection, or like a belt made of human nipples, a bowl made of human skull. Yeah, like when they finally went into this house, because nobody had a reason
to go in his
before
house.
that time. Just leave crazy Ed alone. You know, he's fine sitting out there, but he would rob graves and take these body parts, including his mother's, and he would wear the skin. That's where the leather face comes from, based on that. And the cannibalism aspect of it, he would eat portions of that first victim. And so that was Ed Gein in the 1950s, and of course that's becomes, I think at that time, more sensational than Holmes or Fish or anyone that had come before them. And this was around the same time, the 50s and early 60s with the Starkweather, when Starkweather and Carol Ann Fugit did their thing to the Clutter, I think to the Clutter family in Kansas or Nebraska, I can't remember. And that one, the Natural Born Killers, is who they're based on. Starkweather. I believe Starkweather had 12 victims, including Carol Ann Fugit's family. And at the time, that seems a crime of passion. But then there was something about Starkweather where he seemed to enjoy murdering people. As they were on the run, they took over the house of the Clutter family. Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
Is the most dangerous game of all. I enjoy it. And...
That's it. It's just Starkweather enjoyed torturing and murdering. Whereas, and you might say that Starkweather, it was murdering for profit because he was using the resources of the people that he was killing. He would take over the entire house, he and Carol Ann Fugit. And, so there was, but it's not exactly profit. It's just him doing what
I wonder if it's a
what he
control
does.
thing, like taking control, being in control.
That definitely could have been part of it. And they were young. They were a really young couple at the time. So the question that is posed in Mindhunter is they're talking about the modern serial killer, which I'd like us to discuss. But it came to a point where in 63, Kennedy was shot.
Yes.
62, 63.
63.
11/22/63.
Yeah. Yes. That happens in 63. Then you've got Nixon, the hippie movement with all of a sudden the government's not good. They're not a parental figure. They're vampires who are sucking your blood.
That's because of the Vietnam War.
Well, that and there was other stuff.
Well, there's the Vietnam War. There was the continuation of the freedom movement for blacks to have
Civil rights.
civil
Right,
rights
the
and
civil
stuff like
rights
that. There, and then the women's rights movement was
ERA,
right,
yeah.
and then you also had the assassination of these liberal giants,
King and Robert
Kennedy, and so. Those, along with the Vietnam War, which was drafting young men and sending off to go fight and die in Vietnam, that created, and so people started protesting that and burning their draft cards and stuff like that. All of that was undermining to the government, who was lying about it and lying about the causes and continuing the Vietnam War, which they knew had no realistic way of. Even Johnson, when he started, knew that he wasn't going. That there was no way to win this war.
Yeah, there's no end game. There's no realistic end game for this.
And so you're sending off these young men to die for no good reason. And so that's what corrupted people's opinion of the government.
Right. And so at that time, you have what seems to be a society falling apart, whereas in...
well, you would also have to consider previous wars.
Well,
where it feels like we're winning. It feels like the bad guys have a face that's so easy
the bad
to
guys are so horrible in
and
World War II.
Well, there's also, in World War II, we are fighting a clear enemy who was a threat to the world.
Yeah, and they were evil.
And they were
winning.
evil.
And we were actually winning.
And we had been attacked.
Right. They attacked us first. And then you have the police thing in Korea, which was the fight against communism.
And that wasn't that popular, but it only went on for actually 2 years.
Was it 2? I was thinking 3.
MASH lasted for 11 seasons.
11 seasons
but
on
the
a
war
2-year
itself
war,
only lasted 2 years.
Right. So you had a society unraveling at that time, and then you see an uptick of motivationless killings. Before then, it was a murder of passion. You knew the reason, you knew the motive, you knew why. Eventually you were going to catch them because they had some sort of relation to the victim at some point. And then all of a sudden, in fact, at the same time Kemper was doing it, you had I think it was Herbert Mullen, but I could be wrong, that was traveling up and down California highways abducting young women, young hitchhikers at the time, because when they started attributing murders, it was... unclear of whether it was Kemper or Herbert Nolan, and eventually Kemper set the record straight on that. And so this is where we are now. We're at the late 60s, early 70s when these guys are really doing their business. Bundy's really doing his business. And at the same time, you've got Jim Jones selling salvation
this is the start of the Zodiac.
to minorities.
End of the 60s, 69.
And this Berkowitz had happened, and Berkowitz was one of the early ones where you go, what the fuck? This guy is attacking women in cars, or couples in cars at random because his dog told him to, Son of Sam. And it's the most bizarre thing. There's no motive. They're just out there killing. There has, at this point, you've had, since the early 20s, you've had an influx of war films, cowboy films, violent cinema for the period. And I'm not a big one to say it's a direct causation, right, between media and violence. But I do believe that there's a desensitization.
Yeah.
I've been desensitized. We've all, in some way, been much more desensitized than people 50 years ago.
The argument now, it's not about movies. No one ever,
it's video games now.
argues that movies are causing them to be violent.
Right.
It's always video games' fault.
It's video games. You can't play Doom or what is it, Battlefield or what's the big one? Yeah, Black Ops. Call
I
of
don't
Duty.
think any of these things are causing people to be violent. There are certainly these things can desensitize you to violence, and if you're someone who has a desire who is fighting those urges to become violent, they might desensitize you a little bit faster.
Well, that's
further.
always my point. I'm not saying there's not an influence. There's certainly some kind of influence, but
it's not
I've
as
played
simple.
violent video games since I was a child.
Yeah, same here. And I've never assaulted anyone.
Right,
but
right.
You've got people in government who want an easy answer.
Right.
If we take care of this, the problem will go away.
They're born evil.
Just
There's
stop
something in the
vaccines,
genes.
no one's going to have autism.
Right, exactly.
That's the dumbest thing that's ever been said.
It's ridiculous.
But if that was the solution, then they'd solve the problem.
Right.
It's just not.
Yeah.
But they feel like if this is something we can combat, even though it's not going to help at all.
Right.
Because it's easy to sell to the
Exactly.
public. Because people want simple, easy answers as
Something they
opposed to
can
complex,
understand.
nuanced answers to complex, nuanced problems.
I think I had mentioned this whenever we solved the criminal justice system, whenever we fixed it,
Right.
Which hell of a job, guys.
Great, good.
Pat on the backs
Yep.
for everybody for fixing that shit.
Yeah.
Good job.
Let's fix immigration next.
Right. Well, I don't know, Jeff. That's a fairly complex system about blah, blah, bullshit. Anyway.
Says a country full of immigrants.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
So where were we?
That, isn't there?
What was I talking about? Oh, the
murdering
whole
people.
thing. Well, I had mentioned on the
Violence
criminal
in movies.
justice system, there's the...
Desensitization.
What you see now is, they took prayer out of schools and now people are killing people, or people are turning away from God.
People,
and now
the
people
Crusades.
who pray
Right.
don't kill people. Like the Crusades didn't use prayer itself and God itself as the excuse to go out and murder
Same thing with
thousands
slavery.
of people.
And slave owners were the good Christians.
And so let me mention this. One of the most sickening murderers I've mentioned is Albert Fish, who was doing it before In God We Trust was printed on our money.
Right.
And there was still...
Ron, that's always been there.
Right, it's always
Our
been there
country was built on
since
Christian
Benjamin
ideals.
Franklin
This
printed
is
the
me-
first dollar
me,
bill.
the Christian, who
Right.
says that's absurd.
Right. Yeah, you have to have moments where you sit there and go, just shut up, you're making us all look bad.
I'm regularly embarrassed to be a Christian.
And you have more
I'm not
reason now
embarrassed.
than you did 30 years
I'm
ago.
not at all embarrassed about Christ's message.
No, it's
I have
something
no
you should
qualms
enjoy.
about that.
And even I, as an atheist, know that there is merit and value in the message of love one another as you would yourself.
Yep.
Or, you know what I'm saying.
No, that's exactly right.
There's valid messages. They have hijacked a very lovely, peaceful religion and made it ugly.
Yep.
They've made it horrifying.
Because
Because
those who do, and you can do it with any religion.
Yep.
Yeah,
they
absolutely
use
you can.
religion as an authority, as a tool to control people.
That's exactly it.
You can use Christianity as a tool to control people, or you can use it to liberate people. And and people. Well, the Bible is one of those things where you can read. You can go to the Bible and find anything to justify
anything you want, and
anything you want.
Translate it any way you want.
Especially if you're willing to take things out of context.
Absolutely.
And so, so there are lots of people running around claiming to be Christians, preaching Christ,
Right.
Preaching the Gospels, who have no real understanding of the Gospels or of Christianity and are only using it because it allows them to control other people.
That's exactly
There's
right.
a quote, and I forget who said it, but it said, and I've probably quoted this on here before. It said the single greatest cause of atheism
These Christians.
is Christians.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'm pulling up real fast, sorry. The single greatest cause of atheism in the world today is Christians who acknowledge Jesus with their lips and walk out the door and deny him by their lifestyle.
Yep.
That is what an unbelieving world simply finds unbelievable.
Yeah.
That's Brandon
Like
Manning.
evangelicals who say that, okay, we need to be more Christ-like, everyone trying to convert, go on evangelizing the word of Christ to the world, and yet they're the most pro-Trump supporters out there.
Absolutely.
You are supporting the Antichrist,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
yet you are doing it because he is giving you everything politically
Right.
that you've ever wanted. So basically, you've sold your soul to the devil because he's giving you what you want.
Well, these are the same people that paid for Joel Osteen's mansion. Let's not forget
if
that.
you look at what Christ said, and when he was angry at people, there's really only one group of people he was ever really mad at.
Pharisees.
Yeah,
The Pharisees.
religious leaders.
Yeah.
People who religiosity
Yep.
and like
Right. Who would say,
thought
look
they-
at how holy I am.
And
Look,
see
everybody.
how much I pray.
Right,
Yeah,
exactly.
Jesus said, "Pray in silence. Pray,
Yeah.
pray,
That's, oh God, yes.
don't-
pray in
absolutely.
anonymity."
Don't do
Absolutely.
it.
Go
Or
to your
you're
closet.
getting your
It
reward
was,
now
go to your
instead
closet
of-
and pray.
Yeah.
Just like Carrie's mom. But you know, so you see we're
Serial killers.
yeah, exactly. So you see, by the time we come to Kemper and the early part of Bundy, and then Dahmer did his stuff 10 years later, we're at a point where the people have now they now have proof that the government is full of shit. The government is sapping you like a vampire.
Yeah. Can I stop you right there?
Absolutely.
Are we going to get any light moments in this, or is this all going to be depressing?
Well, we could talk about Gacy. He was a clown.
I just wanted to bring that up and continue on
appreciate
with
that.
We
your.
talked about desserts earlier.
We did. It was pretty funny when, on the day that Bundy was electrocuted, that McDonald's had the sign that said "Free fries when Bundy fries," and they would give out free
Really?
French fries. Well, he was captured. He was captured at a McDonald's.
That's amazing.
Bundy is another one. If you've never seen the movie Deliberate Stranger with Mark Harmon,
No, I've seen it.
Who's one of my man crushes,
Bundy
by the way.
seemed to be moving to a state where he knew that if he got caught,
That
they
was
would
it.
execute him because that's the only way to stop him was to kill him, and he knew it.
He had so many friends in the government,
Yep.
in politics, and he was brilliant political strategist, charming, handsome,
Yeah.
lovely guy, and without that dark side, who knows how far he could
Yeah,
have
but
gone.
he's a sociopath.
But
He's a psychopath.
a sociopath. His stuff was every bit as ugly as Kemper, the way he would torture and rape these women in these cabins or shacks, out in the woods. And so he had murdered in at least 3 or 4 states
Yeah.
at this time, like Washington,
Absolutely.
Utah,
Colorado.
and he calls
Florida.
Colorado, and he calls one of his buddies and he says, "Where do they still have the death penalty?"
Yeah,
and the guy
Florida.
says Florida, and where does he pop up next?
Florida.
Just like Kemper, he knew that he had to be stopped. He had to be killed.
Well, here's the thing.
By the electric chair.
A
And he
lot of
did.
these guys. Well, I don't know about a lot of these guys. Bundy had a girlfriend. How is it that he has a girlfriend? What makes him decide? Well, this person's going to be my girlfriend, while this girl is going to be murdered by me.
Right.
Compartmentalization.
Right.
And you would have to imagine, I'm sure this isn't always true, but I'm sure in some cases the loved one, the spouse, no, I'm not going to say they know, but they have to.
There's something off.
Wrong.
There's something off.
And they just ignore it.
Well, I think, was Ann Rule his girlfriend for a while, or were they just friends? I can't remember, but Ted Bundy and Ann Rule were close.
I don't remember, but I think
For a long time.
I think she's his girlfriend.
And she wrote the book. I believe she's the one that wrote Deliberate Stranger.
I don't know.
About Ted Bundy. But
Let's talk about Al Bundy instead.
he's a hoot.
Yeah.
But you'll find that
He was married with kids or
Yeah.
children.
he was a good guy.
Sold shoes. Women's shoes.
I've lost my
And
place now.
Biggins.
Shit, we were
Bowling.
talking about bowling. That's exactly it. We were
Bowling
talking
for
about Bundy,
Columbine.
and you outside of the
Brought it back.
outside. That's a good movie though.
It is.
Outside of the catalyst that sets these people off, that early trigger of their first act where they cross that
There
line.
are almost no connections.
That's exactly it. It could be a family member, girlfriend, something like that. That is the first. And then after that, there's no.
Yeah.
If you could be his best buddy, and he'll never kill you. You're not in danger at all. But this guy's out there doing the worst,
Well,
most
here's the
horrifying
thing,
things.
though. Whatever that catalyst, something was going to be a catalyst with all these people. All these
It's
guys,
there's-
all of them were eventually going to cross the line and start doing it because That's who they are. They're. If it wasn't whatever the catalyst was, it was going to be a different catalyst. But they were going to eventually start killing people.
And then, that brings us another question: is it heredity or is it environment that causes this stuff?
Well,
or is it mutation? Is it,
right.
Some people are born sociopaths. They don't have any empathy
there's a
for
gene.
other people.
It's just in the genes that they're not
They
going
are
to.
born without any empathy. That doesn't
Right.
mean they're a psychopath. That doesn't mean they're going to go out and murder people. But that means they cannot. They have no ability to empathize with people. I read this book called the How to Spot a Psychopath or something like that. Anyway, and it's talking about psychopaths and how 1 in 10 people is a psychopath.
Yes.
But most psychopaths don't actually go out and murder people.
Yeah, that's it. 1 in 10. Obviously,
it
there's a lot
just
of living
means
normal
that
lives.
they can't connect
They're
with
selfish,
people.
right? It's just selfish.
And they did experiments in prison on psychopaths, people in prison that they knew were psychopaths. And one of their things was that they hooked them up to this electric shock machine, and they said, "We're going to give you an electric shock." And the people who weren't psychopaths kind of were nervous, and the ones who weren't psychopaths weren't.
Yeah.
And then they'd give them the shock, and then they'd do it again. They'd say, "We're going to give you a shock." And those who weren't psychopaths got really nervous before
The second
and the
one.
psychopaths still weren't nervous. It's like they couldn't.
No.
They couldn't even be empathetic with themselves.
Yeah, they couldn't feel
They couldn't
as far
feel.
as that goes.
So they had they weren't able to project. Oh well, this is going to hurt me, even though they'd just been
It
shocked.
seems like a brain chemistry thing. I just finished reading "Do Androids Dream of Electric Sheep?" recently.
Yeah, the Blade Runner.
and it was.
Blade
It's all
Runner
about.
book.
Have you seen Blade Runner? So I have not seen the movie.
the original
I
one.
own it. I haven't seen
It's
the movie
been
yet.
years
But
since
it's
I've
all
seen it.
about androids.
Yeah.
Right.
And Deckard is
finding them and
Deckard is
getting
his
rid of
job is
them.
to retire androids because they are not human and they cannot empathize, and that's his test.
Yeah.
His test to find if this is an android or human is an empathy test.
Yeah.
He's explaining these situations about extinct animals that are dead and how you would feel and would you be in this
Oh, he
situation.
does that with Brian James in the film, and Brian James has that awesome sort of reaction during that scene. Brian James was a very good actor, but he got pigeonholed into these villain parts that were two-dimensional and, paper thin kind of characters. But in Blade Runner,
and
he
that's
was
why I
very
brought
good.
up Kemper earlier, because Kemper is kind of an exception to this.
He was
he was
odd for a
capable of
serial killer.
empathy.
He was odd for a serial killer.
So
but
it's
you
not
can't
even as
deny
simple as just.
he still fits that same pathology, though, and so you can't not call Kemper a serial killer.
No. He's definitely that. It's
He's
just,
absolutely, but he was
does-
smarter than most of
he
them.
breaks that mold of.
He was more empathetic than most of them. I think
well, he might not be a psychopath, but he's still a serial killer.
he's still a serial killer. Yeah, you had somebody like I had mentioned Panzram a little earlier. Are you guys familiar with Panzram?
The name
No.
sounds familiar. But.
This guy, this fucking piece of work. He was active in the early 1900s, just like it's the Albert Fish era, right there. This is a person he was raised in an abusive family.
That is a very common.
Oh, absolutely. He was made to work in the fields at the earliest of ages, just back-breaking, horrible labor for a very young child. Had abusive relationships. When he ends up escaping, there's no empathy left in him whatsoever. Humans are no more than a piece of meat. So much that he became a pirate and would steal ships. Ended up in Africa. And just for shits and giggles, would take little African boys out on his boat and then chuck them over to the alligators just to watch the alligators eat them.
Gee.
Yeah, he had no problem with it whatsoever. Panzram, he gets caught. He goes to prison, and there's one prison guard that treated him with any dignity, any humanity. And by this time, he's like in his 40s or 50s or something like that. And there's just nothing left. There's nothing left to save out of Panzram, to the point where when he was stepping up to the gallows, he told him to hurry up because he could have killed 10 people in the time that it took them to set up the gallows for him. Like, he was just that cold about it.
Wow.
So you've got that background of environment and the domineering mother.
It seems
that
like it would
a lot
have
of
to
them
be
have.
a perfect storm.
That's it.
Of
It's got to be something to flip
environment
that switch.
and genetics.
Yeah. In the show they interview another guy who I'd never heard of, Monty Rizzle or something like that. I don't think they made him up, but maybe they did. He may be an amalgamation of other serial killers, but this was a guy not very smart, not a bright guy. Same upbringing of arsonist and petty crimes, larceny, stuff like that, to where they send him off to an institution in Florida, a mental institution down there while he's a juvenile. And then he gets out, he gets a girlfriend, he tries to live a normal life. She goes off to college and writes him a letter one time saying there are a lot of guys up there and she wants to explore the water. She thinks they should break up. So he gets drunk and stoned and goes there and sees her making out with a guy, and he does nothing. He leaves, but when he gets back, he's at his apartment building around 4 o'clock in the morning, and this prostitute pulled up, this prostitute that lived in the same apartment, and he pretty much takes her out in the woods, and when he starts, she pretends to enjoy it, as she is a prostitute. And when he finds out that she's enjoying it, this enrages him. That's what sets him off, is her enjoyment of the sexual act.
Because it means he's not in control again.
Exactly. And they end up getting into a tussle and rolling down a hill into a creek. And he's so upset by this that he starts smashing her head against a rock and drowns her. It was an accident when he crosses the line, but he doesn't stop.
But now he's crossed it.
He kills 4 more people after that. He stabs 3 of them, and then the last person went in the same way. He strangled and drowned them.
Trying to find that thing he had found the first time.
That's probably likely. And of course, there are hundreds of stories about these guys. In fact, when Kemper was being interviewed by the FBI, he would say he predicted there was at least 35. That's an uneducated guess at how many serial killers are out there unidentified doing what he does. And of course, the FBI is shocked at the number of 35 people. Now, I believe it's estimated there's around 400 in America alone that's running loose.
Probably.
They're unsolved crimes. These psychopaths that are out there doing that. They're so damn hard to catch. There's no motive.
There's no formula for it.
And they won't leave evidence.
Yep.
They're good. They won't leave evidence. Forensics keeps trying to catch up with them. They
And
keep trying to
forensics is not
overdo
as reliable as
forensics.
CSI would allow you to believe. There's a lot of skepticism about DNA profiling,
Right.
fingerprints, bite marks.
Well, there's so much that could go wrong. There's no 100% definitive way for you to know what happened when it was just 2 people.
It's easier to catch somebody who murders someone out of passion,
Yeah,
right.
Where there's a connection.
Where there's a connection, that something happened. It's much harder to catch someone who's murdering strangers.
Right,
because
exactly.
how do you find out who came in contact
There's
with
no
this
motive.
person? Right, there's no motive.
Right.
So this person was murdered. What's the motive? Who did it? And where was the contact? It's much harder to find that
If you don't have a
person.
witness, there's no,
Right. Well,
nothing connecting.
Dahmer took kids that, they were missed, obviously, but he saw them on the street. It's just a random occurrence of events. He asked them up into their apartment. Nobody thinks anything of that. And these kids, they have homosexual inclinations, and so they're going to be, most of them at that time, closeted about this. So how do you catch someone that's doing something like that, where even the thing that connects the serial murderer to his victim is a taboo thing to society? In the 90s, you didn't admit to that. You didn't admit to being gay. You just knew you hated it because you couldn't help it. And so you had someone like Dahmer who was doing a taboo thing on top of a taboo thing that was kept secret. How do you catch this guy? He was out there eating people up in Detroit, or it was Detroit?
I don't
Wisconsin.
know.
I can't remember. It's somewhere in the north. I was thinking Milwaukee.
Yeah.
Something like that. So then, as we get towards the end, you have these people that we've mentioned, horrible murderers with varying degrees, actually, of morality and honor, because Kemper, he's a nice guy outside of his inclinations. Like, that's a good human being outside of this inclination. And it's weird. It's a weird dynamic.
But this inclination cancels out everything else.
That's the thing. You don't want to call him a nice guy. You don't want to say
he's the nice. Yeah, he might be a nice personality.
You may want to say polite rather than nice.
He might
That's
be a polite
better.
person, but he's not a nice person. He murdered all these people.
Murdered and molested.
That cancels out. It's not like somebody who, in the heat of passion, accidentally kills somebody who didn't mean to do it and will never do it again. That person might be a nice person who you can forgive and bring back into society. This person is not a nice person, or else he...
Right, he'd have stopped. He wouldn't have done it in the first place.
He would have turned himself in when he had the thoughts.
So now we've gone down that little rabbit hole with these guys. And in the late 60s and in the mid 70s, you had Manson and Jim Jones, who were mass murderers. Well, Jones was a mass murderer, undoubtedly, but isn't there psychopathy there as well?
Well, there is, but they are not serial killers, even though they're probably responsible for more people dying.
Yeah, no, that's
They
mass
can-
murder. It's
they
mass
can
murder.
Mass
people
murder.
do things
Right.
instead
They
of
convince
doing it
people.
themselves.
So Jim Jones, convinced people to do stuff, and because he had decided to commit suicide, he decided that all of his followers
Everybody should.
had to die
9,000
with him.
9,000, wasn't
Well,
it?
no, several hundreds, like 300.
Let me find out.
I don't think
who
it's 9,000.
I think
There were
it's a
some
lot.
who escaped, but most of them
Right.
committed suicide, and then there were armed guards to ensure that they did.
Right. Who
And-
killed the senator, the visiting senator,
Yeah,
by
exactly.
the way, as well. It's the
which was the precipitated the whole thing. And Charles Manson was
918.
918, not
Okay.
9,000.
Yeah,
918,
908.
yeah.
So
almost 1,000 people.
Charles Manson was definitely a psychopath and
Yeah.
a murderer, and he might have become a serial murderer if he is out there on his own. But
Right,
he had his own
unchecked.
Manson family that he could send out to do all these horrible murderous
Manson
things.
fit all those little profiles
Yes, he
that we
did.
had talked about: petty larceny, arsony, the abusive mother.
But
the
he's also
the
very
prostitute mother.
charismatic, and he
Absolutely.
was able to
and
get
smart, very smart guy.
And so he was able to get other people. He was able to act like this caring person for the people in his
Right.
family,
The misfits,
and
the outcasts.
misfits. And he brought in all these misfits who didn't feel like they belonged, and suddenly they belonged to his family. And then through his brainwashing,
Right.
he got them to go out and do these things that they wouldn't have done.
Right,
They aren't
right.
the serial killers, even though they did the murders.
That's if you want to talk about a perfect storm of because the time period in which Manson was rising as a charismatic figure had just as much to do as it did with his
There were all
being
these
a
other
psychopath.
gurus rising at the same
Right,
time.
right.
So suddenly,
The modern
having all these
messiahs.
gurus, everyone was following their different. Exactly.
We,
their
we just
messiahs.
talked about losing faith in the government, so who can you have faith in?
Right,
If
right.
religion has failed you, if
And
the
you-
government's failed you, someone's got to have some sort of truth.
You had all these kids who rejected their bourgeois, straight-laced upbringing
Parents,
because it
yeah.
was fake. It was a facade that everything is just fine and we're going to the country club or the pool or whatever. And you had these runaways who felt like they knew they didn't fit in with that family. Who would they fit in with? And you had
Someone
Charlie who would give them
accepts them, someone who welcomes
LSD
in.
and love them. Or pretend to love them. I don't know if Manson was capable
free
of love.
sex and-
free sex and all that. They
all
gave
that,
the,
yeah.
we went out to the Spawn Ranch and gave them a little paradise in which to live. And as long as they knew that he was the king and they treated him as a godly figure, he treated them so well. And it was his crazy ideology about starting the race war, blaming it on the.
It's
on the
amazing how
black
people who pretend to be
kill-
religious create these cults around themselves, giving themselves
Absolutely.
complete control. It's the same
they
thing.
see it. They
Yeah.
see the authority religious figures have.
Right.
And they're like, I want that.
Yeah,
Because it's the same
exactly.
thing in Waco. That's the same thing.
Yeah, the David Koresh.
Yeah, David Koresh.
Yes.
They didn't go out and murder people, but he had this whole cult around him that was ready to fight a war
Yeah.
for him, and they ended up.
And they were armed.
And they were armed to the teeth.
people.
And so,
It's easy to look at the leaders of these and lambast them, but in my opinion, the followers.
God and guns is a horrible
I'm
mixture.
not letting them off. I don't care how vulnerable you are. You
Right.
accepted this.
yeah.
So let me ask you this though, because I would be thoroughly remiss not to bring up Jim Jones, who is also a fascinating character on his own.
No doubt.
But at the beginning, when he first created the People's Temple out in California, doing much like Manson did and taking minorities in that society seemed to have rejected and poor people, was Jim Jones, were his intentions pure and good at the beginning?
I don't know. He was faking miracles right from the start.
Was he? Okay.
Pretty close
Yeah,
to
I
the
don't
start.
think pure and good are the words I would use.
I
Maybe
think
not.
I
he
know
was
if he had
probably
good intent-
he
he
probably
probably-
had good intentions in his mind of spreading the church, and
Right.
he probably didn't have the support that he thought he should from regular denominations.
Right.
So he started his own.
I think the best
And
outcome
then
is
as
they probably
people's-
weren't as malicious as they would become.
Yes.
Well, that's how I feel about Jim Jones. Because before they went to Guyana, he had lost it. He was nuts.
Well, yeah,
because
they went to- that's why they went to
survivalist
Guyana.
camp sort of thing out in California.
Well, they fled to the Guyana because of, I believe, legal problems in the United
Yeah.
States, because he was already losing it, and
Yeah.
so everybody sold all their belongings to move to Guyana and create this
one does.
paradise.
That's what. But at his earliest inception of the People's Temple, you could almost think this guy is trying to do a right thing by bringing in these people until he starts sleeping with several of them and having children with a few of them, and
Using authority.
it's that ego trip that he was on he is the new Jesus, and you need to worship him as a deity.
Yeah.
And when he crossed that line, that's where it all really, it was, no shit. It sounds funny, but it was after he met Little Richard. He had a meeting with him where Little Richard was like, we are gods. We are gods among men. And Jim Jones took that to heart.
Yeah.
He was becoming fairly, because he took in so many minorities, he had, people like Little Richard that was saying, I got to meet this guy. He's doing great things for my people.
Well, there was a while when a lot of politicians in California went to Jim Jones because he had a lot of sway.
All that power. He represented the minorities and the poor. Like, that seems to be a person you want to get behind because of what he represents. Well, feeding people
publicly they're doing good things, but that often that public good things is hiding an evil
That was it right there.
And megalomaniacs, and he's a megalomaniac.
Absolutely,
megalomaniacs are drawn to power because the more power they have, the more it's about people worshiping them and finding them important.
Absolutely.
You can look at the megalomaniac that's in the White House right now. That's what it's all about.
How did he not turn out a serial killer himself, or who's to say he's not?
Well, he didn't need to in order to get his ego stroke the way that other megalomaniacs need to kill people to get their ego stroke because they don't have the world stage already coming to them and looking at them.
If Trump's dad had not already been a psychopath himself.
Well, he's definitely a racist. I don't know if he's a psychopath.
If Trump had a domineering mother, what could have happened? He's absolutely a psychopath. He has no empathy for anybody. He feels no regret. He doesn't even know that what he's doing is horrible. I don't think he knows.
He doesn't care.
I think
he doesn't care.
He believes wholeheartedly in what he's doing.
I believe that.
I disagree with almost everything he's doing.
Absolutely.
But I do believe he's doing what he thinks.
Well, that's what makes it more frightening right there.
He believes wholeheartedly that, and he also believes wholeheartedly that people should be loyal to him and that everyone should do what he says. And that he doesn't
care the consequences.
He doesn't care about anyone but himself, except those who represent him.
Put yourself in his position for a moment. He just got elected president because the country wanted him there.
Right.
But did they?
No,
he won.
Hell no.
He won.
Yes,
well, to him, it gives him the message that they did.
But he won the electoral college, but he lost the popular vote by over 3 million votes.
That's happened more than once.
Which is my problem with the whole electoral college.
But again, in his mind, the country wants me to be doing what I'm doing. What I'm doing is what this country needs and wants.
No, I don't think he thinks that deeply. I think he
really don't think.
I think he thinks this is what my supporters want me to do. I don't think he thinks about what this country. He's never out there saying the country. This is what best for everybody. He's always he talks about his supporters, the people who put me here, and him. He talks about himself all the time. When he was overseas with NATO, he's talking about him. He's not talking about us. He's always saying, I won the more votes. Well, Putin's not my enemy. Well, maybe he's not your enemy, but he is the United States enemy.
Right, exactly. No, so what stopped him from being a serial killer? If he had had a domineering mother, if he had had any of those stressors that caused a serial killer to cross that line.
He had a different outlet.
I absolutely think Trump had the potential to become a serial killer. Yeah. Undoubtedly, he has.
Hey, let's as we're closing up here, let's talk about things that make us happy.
Talk about a jolly time. By the time you post this, I'll be 4 days from leaving for Cocoa Beach. I need this vacation so badly.
I went to Kroger this week.
Yeah,
and I bought some Red Delicious apples. I love Red Delicious apples so much.
They're so mealy.
If you buy bad ones, you're correct. But the ones I bought were some of the most crisp, delicious apples I've had in years.
I enjoy the most
delicious apples.
Oh, absolutely.
But
I only buy good Red Delicious apples.
Golden Delicious doesn't dry my mouth out. The Red Delicious sometimes do.
What I'll do is I'll start one at home.
Yeah.
As I'm leaving to go to the pack. I get about 2/3 of the way to the pack, and I'm finish it. I just throw it out the window.
In a
field.
In about 2 more months, we'll get the best apples on it. I love autumn apples.
Yeah,
but that's something that made me really happy this week. Was a couple. I've had some really good apples this week.
It's funny how these little tiny things make us so happy. The autumn season, part of it's the food, because you get the candy apples, which I love, the popcorn balls. I love those. Count Chocula finally comes back on the shelves, and apparently I heard last night they're making a not serial killer, but like a Jason, Freddy, Michael cereal where the milk turns red like blood. I would buy the shit out of it. Because if it's delicious, no.
So after a couple weeks ago,
yeah,
when we talked about our D&D classes, I went out and bought a D&D rule book.
Oh no!
I'm trying to talk Jake into.
You're heading that direction. Jake could be fun.
I want to try it.
Jake could be a lot of fun.
So there's good in the world.
There is.
Oh no! Yeah, absolutely. We can brighten it up a bit.
You're gonna do an amazing film this coming weekend.
I am going to do a kick-ass movie here in one more week.
No, this weekend.
Friday, this way. That's right. In just 2 more days, we'll be doing the drawing.
Sorry. What I mean is, he already did it.
Right. Oh yeah, that's right. By this point,
3 days ago.
I'm sorry, folks. We're just waiting to see whether I won or not.
No
We're seeing whether the team good people won. Yeah, I forgot. This is.
We're definitely not recording this on July 14th.
Absolutely not. We wouldn't do that to you people. We record live on Wednesday afternoons.
Fresh.
And that's when you get us. Actually, it was weird today because we've been doing Sundays at 10. Mm-hmm. Like that's when our church starts, the Church of the Wild Card.
The Wild Card Church
on Sundays, and today is Saturday.
Deckheads are always welcome.
Yeah, absolutely. We need a gallery for these people to sit and watch us for
we did that twice.
For some fucking bizarre reason.
We
charged people money.
Right. Well, it all went to the
keep
Playhouse,
it,
though. It was $5 for a good cause.
Yeah.
So that wasn't us being greedy.
No, we didn't get a penny.
We were gifted though
candy.
by a few of our fans.
Twizzlers.
We were gifted with food and pizza. Wendy brought us that pizza the one time,
Sure.
which I love those shipware and a bowl of candy and
so much candy.
and snacks.
So,
yeah, good times. Thanks for letting me bring up the room today, guys.
Sure.
I've always been interested in serial killers.
They are fascinating.
To me, it's not a dark subject as far as it is a dark subject, but it's just interesting conversation.
Yeah, no, that is certainly true.
It's interesting conversation. I find it very icky to be inside their head. I don't like being inside their head. I find it a really icky
maybe
experience.
it's me, the science portion of me, because I want to.
Yeah.
I don't want to.
I'm like Jared. I want to read about them. I want to know about them.
I don't really want to see pictures of the crime scenes. Like I have no interest in seeing that.
No, that puts me off.
The gratuitous part, but I love the psychology of trying to understand because I feel like if we can start to understand, we can start to help.
Right.
In some way. If we
and
know,
that's the whole thing. Understanding them so you can cut it off before it becomes a problem.
If we know there's a certain brain chemistry thing that's going on, maybe there's a way to remediate that.
And who knows what's going to happen with more genetic research and stuff like that we'll be able to pinpoint that certain spot of DNA that says you're going to cross the line one day.
And so you're bringing us back to eugenics.
Ugh.
Oh my God! No, I'm not saying kill them. I'm not saying kill them or sterilize it. I'm just saying recognize it so you can help it, and so you can avoid it. No, like, eugenics is so horrifying.
Imagine this: you guys each you have a new child on the way, and you are told by Dr. Eaton, that your child has a disability, and will probably die within the first 2 years.
Yeah.
Will you have the child? Will you abort it?
I can't even answer that right now.
Okay,
Doc, I need a couple of weeks.
This is something I ask my students every year. Caleb had to write me something about this in class because we were talking about genetics, and then I go on to say, "Oh, by the way, Dr. Eaton can fix it. I can go into their DNA and change it so they don't have this disease."
No, Dr. Eaton's going to be fixing my baby.
Right, and so then I ask if you're okay with that. Do you want me to make him 6'3", give him blue eyes?
When is enough?
Do you want to make him good at the clarinet? But what if we could do that if they come to you and say your child is healthy? But we can tell based upon some hormone levels that they're going to tend towards psychopathy. Yeah. Do you want us to adjust that? Like that there's a possibility that within the next 100 years, that is
when
that
you
kind
draw
of
the
screening.
Line. And when do you fiddle with it enough so that it's no longer the human being that you created?
Or we could say, maybe have your child normally. Here is give this every other Thursday. Have them take this pill.
I wish like hell when my kids were born that doctors could make my kids better. I'm stuck with these little shits that Hey, Mackenzie. What? Welcome to the studio.
Hi.
Yeah, you'll not listen to this episode.
So,
I've already listened.
God damn it.
We would love to hear your thoughts on serial killers.
Psychopaths.
We'd love to hear your thoughts on desserts.
On me.
We'd love to hear your thoughts on things that make you happy.
And Jim Jones.
Like apples.
Like the People's Temple or apples.
Please make me happy.
Candy apples. There have been a few crisp mornings this week, and when I step out the door, I go,
they've been moist
and scrumptious and luscious. Every time I go, that's fall coming. Yeah. It's so far away right now. Coming. It's so far away, but there's that tinge of joy that I feel for
I think it is.
autumn.
It's after tomorrow. It's going to get more comfortable again.
Yeah, a little more comfortable. Today is supposed to be. I got the
It's
severe
toasty out
weather
there.
alert
It's
that
toasty
says,
out there.
"Oh fuck, stay inside for the rest of your life." That's what it says
Yeah.
today.
Yeah, really?
It says you're going to burn in eternal flame if you step out the door today.
When I got that pizza, it was actually uncooked when I left Pizza Hut. Right. The drive back.
Even when I walked out,
The
when I walked out at
convection.
9:30, my house this morning, I went.
See, I didn't think it was bad. I had my windows down.
It wouldn't. It wouldn't. I couldn't this morning. I did it the
I
last
didn't-
two.
I
But
did
this
that with
morning was
pizza.
a little too humid already, and I hate those mornings where you wake up and it's already gross.
Now you go outside and you feel like, oh, I should need another shower.
That's it. Yes, I hate
You're
that
getting
feeling.
one when you walk outside.
Yeah, you are.
So
It's
speaking of
humid.
showers
Beat
and
the
good
heat,
feelings
deckheads.
and how hot it is, until next time, stay wild.
Stay wild.
Bite the edge.